Welcome to the Agency Initiative podcast hosted by Kristen Kavanaugh and Mike Randolph. Authentic people, courageous stories. This podcast is sponsored by the Agency Initiative with the intention of building agency for the moments that matter. For more information about the Agency Initiative and to start your journey, check out www.agency-initiative.com. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Agency Initiative podcast. I'm your host, Mike Randolph, and joining me today is my partner in crime, founder and leader of the Agency Initiative, Kristen Kavanaugh. Say hi, Kristen.
Hey, everybody. Welcome.
Hey. So this podcast is the first part of our new series called Agency Unlocked, where we're going to answer the big questions. Why self-love and courage are important, why authenticity matters, and how the process of intentional decision-making based on your own personal values shapes your leadership. We're going to share our own personal journeys toward agency as well, our moments that matter, and welcome guests along the way to share their journeys. Ultimately, the goal is to share lessons learned and stories that help our listeners connect to their own moments. In this first episode, we're going to explore the origin of the company, how the Agency Initiative got started, and recap our experience at the USC Women's Conference 2023, where we publicly launched the Agency Initiative just last week. Okay, Kristen, so let's get started. I mean, how does it feel to be here right now in this moment, just having launched the Agency Initiative?
It feels surreal. This moment feels surreal. I've thought about it for a long time and really wanted to do something where I felt like I could make an impact, but I never really knew what that looked like. And I feel like all of the conversations that you and I have had up to this point, there's a lot of aspirational thinking, and then it feels like it just clicked, and now here we are, and it's real and exciting and scary all at the same time.
Yeah, that there's that moment of fear in there where you're like, oh, is this actually going to happen? Are we actually going to do this? And we did it. You did it last week on stage at USC. What was that like?
It was phenomenal. You know, there was a lot of preparation that went into it, thanks to you, thanks to Julie, and all of the hard work that we put in the 3.5 months leading up to that event. But that moment, walking out on stage to Beyonce and seeing people's faces light up and respond to the message that we crafted together about what we think leadership is and what agency is and why it's important, just felt like a relief that we are bringing something to the table that is different, that resonates with people, that they feel like they can go and take action on immediately. I couldn't have asked for better.
Yeah, and you could see that folks took action on it right away. We're gonna get to that here in a minute, but how did this all start? Like, where did the idea for the Agency Initiative come from, and like, how did the speech play into that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I've been thinking a lot about fear. It's amazing how not having a job leads you down certain paths.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mine left to fear. And so, you know, I was thinking about how fear shows up in the workplace and how people react to fear and what it would be like to work in a workplace where you didn't have to worry about being afraid to make the right choices, to lead by your values, to speak up when you had an idea or you had a dissenting opinion. And I really wanted to bring that message forward to people. When I started to look at my leadership journey, I noticed a pattern. And the pattern was when I learned to be my authentic self, I learned to have courage, and I learned to recognize these moments. There was something about the convergence of all of those things that seemed to result in positivity and goodness. And I think the world and our workplaces need more positivity and goodness. And so if we're able to help leaders step into those moments and have that kind of impact, that was something that it was worth coming out of retirement to do.
Yeah. I that's interesting you say that, because fear is really prevalent right now, and for a lot of folks. You know, if you think about tech layoffs, all of the the current economic conditions right now, people are afraid for their jobs, and so showing up authentically is really challenging. for people, especially if they're afraid, hey, tomorrow I might be part of the next reduction in force. I might be, looking for a job and I'm in a much more difficult market than maybe I did before. So that obviously was your journey, or how we got started with this was before that, but like, how does it play into the message now?
Right. I think it's real. This isn't all sunshine and rainbows. I think what we're bringing to this is a realism about what it looks like to lead in the current conditions. And it was a very specific call out early on in writing the speech that being authentic doesn't mean just telling the positive sides or the positive stories, or the positive impacts. There are real consequences. There is real nuance to this work. And for us to be authentic and in our teachings and for us to be authentic in our teaching, we have to be real about what it is and what it isn't. And I think we've stayed true to that, which people appreciate.
Yeah.
That's what I think people appreciated on Friday, that it wasn't sunshine and rainbows.
No.
It was a realistic look at how difficult it is to show up courageously and authentically and powerfully in the workplace. And there are times when you can do it, and there are just times when you can't.
Yeah. I for what it's worth, when folks experience, having that moment of agency taken away from them, they have, having that time taken away from them, where they are, part of a reduction or lose their job. Hearing the message of, no, you actually can control. You actually can be in control in that situation is really powerful for folks, just in general. Not even talking about people of color, historically underrepresented groups, women, which with the conference was obviously focused around women. So like, there's all of these other aspects that come to play for this, which you could speak to from a very authentic standpoint. And I think that's what resonated with folks. If I'm, reading the reaction of the room, like, people saw that in you. People saw that they could see, hey, she's been through it. She's seen it. She's like, this comes from a very real place.
Yeah, there's power in storytelling, and I think I really had to take stock of my life and my leadership and what had happened, and find those moments that really shaped my path. And some of them were positive and some of them were negative. And I think there's nothing wrong with sharing a full view of those experiences to help people understand how that relates to their own experience, or maybe they can gain empathy for somebody that might be having a different experience. But I think storytelling is the way to help people really connect with the work versus, and I know you and I differ on some of this a little bit,
sure.
but versus the data or the theory, I think people just appreciate hearing that somebody's been through it in a way that resonates to them.
Yeah, I think data reinforces the stories. Mm-hmm. It's not so data is part of that, but you can make anything of data that you want it to be. It's just a point of information that you can interpret. But when you add the story to it, when you add the experience to it, it personalizes that data in a way that, a number on a page or a spreadsheet or something like that just isn't going to resonate necessarily with folks unless they've lived it, unless they've actually been in that experience themselves. And, part of this whole process, part of this whole thing that we've started is to just expose people. Mm-hmm. People exposed to statistics and stories all the time. Like, that's something that just, constantly stuff is coming at us. But when you put it in terms of agency, that intentional decision making in the moments that matter, and these are the moments that we're talking about, it gives somebody something to anchor back to, a process or a way of dealing with a certain situation that I think is very real, that, again, data can inform at the end.
Yeah, and I think that's why this works.
Right.
Like, this is why this is a partnership that I think has worked for us in the past, and I think is really going to work in this, bringing the data and the research together with the storytelling to give people a full view of what we're talking about and the impacts that it can have on them and the people around them and their workplace. I think it's a holistic view or maybe a holistic take of how we're viewing this.
Yeah, it's, we got to this point through a number of iteration, right? Like we got to this moment of the agency initiative as a theme, as a concept through different iterations. What was resonating with us as far as the experience that we've had, but also how to get people started on this. And that word initiative really is a starting point, right? Understanding your starting point, because this is a journey. The way we talk about this and where we're going to continue to talk about this is you're going to make choices on a daily basis. It is how you make those choices and what you do in those moments that matter that are going to define you over the course of your life. But in order to do that, you got to start. And that starting point is understanding your values, understanding what's important to you in that moment, understanding how that changes over time. And that's really where, it's not just about the decision making, but it's also understanding where you're at in that journey.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of self-reflection and the willingness to look deeply at where you've come from, in the journey so far, and where that's gotten you, and where there were some successes and where there were some missteps and where there's some patterns of behavior, and really taking stock of all that and understanding how you have made the choice in many cases to be where you are right now, and where other choices could have led you down a different path. And I think that's what this is. You're right. That's what this is about. We're starting a new journey, and we're going to make some choices.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yes.
And it's going to lead us down a path, and we might take some tangents, but
Probably.
but I think that's what is exciting about this. You asked me how I was feeling. I think that's what's exciting. This is a new adventure. I think we're doing it together, so that makes it less scary. But to have an adventure with a friend where we can make an impact in people's lives, sign me up.
Yeah, that's the whole goal, right? Like that was what ultimately drove us a ton at Tesla, was the fact that we knew that when we showed up to work every day, we could potentially make an impact in someone's life that was going to help make their experience better, make the company better, or so like that's something that for us to carry that theme forward, I think is authentic to who we are, and to do it in a way that now is totally different than what we had done in the past. So I genuinely appreciate that. So thinking about the journey, thinking about your journey's on display as part of the speech. It's something that you really go deep into your experiences. How easy was it for you to talk about that first and foremost on stage, but also just to understand, to really come to that moment of acknowledgement, like this is my journey and it is worth telling people about?
It takes a lot of digging. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my coach in all of this. This isn't a journey that I have embarked on by myself. There are people around me, personal, professional, family members who have been on this journey with me, that have helped bring things to the surface, who have helped me see patterns, who have helped me work through some things to be able to bring it forward and share with others in the hopes of doing good. And I think that's, a lot of times this feels lonely, or might feel like you're the only one, but or maybe burdened might be a better word, to understand how you got into this particular moment. But from my standpoint, I've been surrounded by people who have helped me dig and look and understand and articulate what has happened for the greater good of other people and of myself too. Like there's a lot of healing that comes from looking and understanding and really getting to know yourself in that way. And there's something cathartic for sharing that with people.
Yeah.
And kind of letting it go. It takes the power out of it.
I think it puts power back in your hands, right? Because you own the story, you own that moment then. And I think it is the coming to terms with it, right? Like you came to terms with those moments and the good decisions or not, the choices or not that you made in those times. But that's why storytelling is powerful in this sense as well, because, somebody in the audience or somebody when we're speaking with them might see themselves in that moment and say like, hey, that sounds like me, or
Mhm.
hey, that sounds like that could be me.
Mhm.
And that's the whole point about this initiative, this